Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders that help it grow. Joseph Coleman live from Indianapolis. Joseph, how was your trip? What time did you get in this morning?
Late trip. I think I got stuck in Chicago for a couple hours for a half-an-hour flight to Indianapolis. But I finally made it, and I'm happy to be here. So.
All right, good one. And you got a ton of information. Lance, good to see you as always. And we're still we're going to do a GoFundMe page for Delaney, right, Lance?
Yeah, she was getting ready to come home on Friday after the trial and had a few car issues that I'm trying to address from afar, and we're getting some repairs done today, and she'll finally get to come home tomorrow.
It was nice to see her. I gave her a big hug. I think she's sick of Indianapolis, but she's
Joe and I were talking about it. She spent a full week in Indianapolis, which is a great town, but she's ready to come home.
Yeah. It sounds like the beginning of an old joke. You know, I told Lance what was wrong with the car, and he starts rattling his stuff off, alternating where I say, it's $1,000. That's what's wrong with the car, $1,000. Okay,
that's exactly. Bob's on point.
Okay, there's a certificate. Thank you all for joining us, and let's go into it. Joseph, who is on the stand this morning?
He's retired Center Director Frank Pucci. I don't know if you have some old timers.
I remember Frank. Yeah, absolutely.
He was
another old timer raises his hand. Yeah. Yes, us old timers remember him very well.
I remember him, so I guess I'm one of the old timers. So,
nice guy.
He's the Loan Guarantee Purchase Center Center Director from 2007 to 2015, which was during the entire time frame of the fraud that was alleged by BankServe and her employees. He testified today that there was deceit. There was a lot of, he was personally insulted by the amount of lies that were being told to him because he was very hands-on with BankServe. Because he was the SOP expert and he really knew the ins and outs of everything LGPC related. And he spent a long time with Kelly Isley, with Carrie Aggie, with Nicole Smith. In fact, they did 2 site visits. He talked about that, and they rolled out they rolled out this big tour, and they knew how important BankServe was to the industry, so they really went out of their way to give her VIP treatment. And then this happened, So he was very calm and collected, but you could tell that he was a little scorned from the actions of these employees.
What exactly did they do that he testified?
He was the government was focusing on the multiple applications. So when the denials were sent back to BankServe, they were able to manipulate the documents and get those through. So, for instance, changing the business name and changing, just altering documents, whatever could be done. Also with follow-up emails from Nicole Smith and Kelly Isley of reconsiderations. So they were very on top of the loans that were ineligible, to be honest with you. And he reiterated very thoroughly that all of these loans were ineligible. For instance, if there was a charge-off, there was applications submitted within the 6-month time frame, which is a big no-no. There was anything related to tax, payroll taxes being paid off, that was obviously ineligible, and all the reconsideration emails that were sent from BankServe to the processing center included basically just fake documents that convinced him to approve these. And so that's where his frustration mounted.
Joseph, when you say fake documents, were these prepared by BankServe? Can you give us an example?
Not fake documents, but they would just change the business name, for instance. So from Ace Precision to Ace Precision Limited, or I mean, it was very minor stuff, but Kelly Isley is actually on the record saying there's an email she sent, you just have to submit another name and it'll go through. And the prosecutors really harped on that, is that they were willing to do go, do this type of stuff to get these loans done. So it became a regular basis. So it was Frank Pucci was at the middle of all this because there was so many reconsideration emails that were being requested, and he was very involved in this. And in fact, he remembers some of he was dealing with 500 applications a month, thousands of emails, and he remembers bank serve emails particularly because they were just a little confusing, and it was so frequent. And so he had to be on top of it and always be dealing with Nicole Smith and Kelly Isley. In fact, he was the one that reported Nicole Smith to the OAG because it was just not making sense. A lot of stuff wasn't adding up. Does that make sense? So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Expand on this last paragraph where he testified, having loans approved and guarantee funds used for ineligible business costs the taxpayers. What was he stating?
The prosecutors really wanted to let the jury know that at every year they are always running out of money for guarantee guarantee funds. The agency is always strapped for cash, and it's always this very, very delicate balancing act. And so when you have to give funds to ineligible businesses, fraudulent businesses, realistically, then that just tips all the scales in the wrong direction. That's what he was really upset about. As a big picture, the agency couldn't keep up with the amount of fraud that was going on, and so it's a big, huge problem. That's why I think maybe all 5 of the defendants are standing trial. I mean, the SBA was not happy with that.
Let me ask you this. This is for Lance as well. Okay, so they broke the rules. They broke the internal rules. The remedy is zap the guarantee. How does this rise to the level of a crime? Lance, you go first, and I'll let Joseph finish up.
Well, I think it rises to the level of crime by manipulating and submitting false information on the application. I think, I don't know I can't remember if the 1919 was in place, but there was a similar form prior to that you certify all the information is correct and accurate. And that's where the crime occurred, was manipulation of the information and putting false information in the application.
Well, Lance, that's an excellent point, because I know in one iteration of the 1920, it may not have been the 1920, but at one point in time we lived under the I personally certify. Now that's changed, but I personally certify this information is correct. So if they knew the information was incorrect, and then therefore you got the false statement to the government. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the 912. So Mr. Pucci reiterated that there are many checks and balances to avoiding an incarcerated felon to get an SBA loan, or someone that's charged off an SBA loan to get another loan. However, the deceitfulness with these employees that are the defendants caused years of abuse. Really, I mean, it was just he was visibly upset when he was really getting into the details of it, because he spent so much time basically dealing with bank serve and their reconsiderations and all their antics. Really, I think that's what he was trying to get to, is that by the time he contacted the OAG about Nicole Smith, he was at his wit's end. I mean, there was so many things that didn't add up. I'm glad that he was a good civil servant, and that he did care. He did actually care to do some background checks and figure out that there was some shady dwellings going on. So
Frank represents 98% of the civil service who want to do the right thing. Absolutely. Yeah. So it sounds like it was a good day for the prosecution.
Absolutely. Yeah. The defense came back and they said, well, this is the most confusing thing because there have been 13 SOPs between 2007 and 2015. Mr. Pucci was all pro though, and he said, yeah, but there was misspellings, or there was minor updates to the SOP. It wasn't like every 6 months they were rewriting the entire handbook. The procedural notices were pretty small. So.
Yeah, and Bob, a lot of these so-called changes are related to eligibility, and the things that they were doing were not right in any version of the SOP.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, he said all this stuff. If I knew the actual truth, if I knew that there was multiple submissions and applications, then everyone would be denied, and those because they're all ineligible. I mean, he quickly said that. So that's why the OIG got involved, and that's why the FBI got involved. That's why I'm here. To be honest with you, it was just too much of things not adding up. And
It sounds like. Go ahead, Joseph. No, you finish.
Just to finish the point of what constitutes the criminal activity and and what's going to happen this week is very exciting. I think that's why this case is fascinating. This is not, we've never really gone after the employees like this.
Absolutely.
However, it was pretty repeated behavior, and so there's a reason why they're in the courtroom. There's a reason why they're being accused of that. So,
did he connect with the jury?
absolutely, I think he did. I think I don't know, Lance, how well you knew him, but I guess he started working IT. I mean, he did everything at the processing center. He knew how the entire operation was run. He took a lot of pride in the facility. In fact, he went on a tangent about how beautiful the facility was because they had the new building that got all the funding from disaster, and he said we were showered with this beautiful building, and took a lot of pride in his profession, as he should have. And I think that resonated, that he was personally offended by the actions of the defendants.
And that sounds like they came across very clear.
Yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me, is that he went out of his way, because BankServe at the time was such a big player in the marketplace, to personally invite Carrie out, to have Nicole, to have Kelly out, and walk through the whole facility. I mean, we've done those tours before. We've gone through Herndon, we've gone through Fresno, and they're extremely gracious.
Very professional and great, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about he testified about working capital. The defense is trying to muddy the waters on that. And you have one of your quotes here: if it's being used to pay taxes, it's an ineligible use of proceeds. Talk about what he said about working capital.
He said it's basic 101 stuff, because the lawyers really wanted to make sure that, this isn't just an SBA thing. Working capital is for every business loan you can get. It's simple assets versus liabilities. So they talked a lot about that. And then any type of working capital to pay taxes is simply not allowed. You can't do it, and you can't pay debt to affiliated owners. And they really they covered that thoroughly. That's the foundation of this fraud, is that you can't pay old payroll taxes and debt. Yeah. So he was used as, I think the lawyers wanted to use his expertise as a government official, as a banking regulator, to drive that point home.
How I guess what I want to know is what was his attitude toward all five defendants? He's obviously singling out Smith, Isley, and Carey. Did he talk about Matt Smith and who's the other defendant?
Chad Griffin. He did.
Yeah,
they were all when it came down. Is that he, felt like a friend. He got lied to. He felt embarrassed, because now he has to explain why all these approvals went through under his command. And he was saying, I did the best I could with the information that I was given. Had I known the truth, I wouldn't have made any of these. I wouldn't have proved anything. However, they were, up to no good. So
What other emails, you mentioned a couple of emails that were problematic for the defense. You mentioned the one about from Isley to Smith, and just changed the date. What other emails did the prosecutors bring up?
It just goes back to the internal communications between Kelly and Nicole. A lot of that was just to figure out ways to game the system. So they had those on record. The one big one was all you have to do is change the name. That was the prosecutor's big aha moment.
Why is that a problem, Lance?
Well, because you're putting false information on the application. I mean, it's pretty simple. And, yes, banks are benefited by getting loans approved and being paid a fee from the bank. But the big issue here is submitting false information.
Very good. What's the rest of the week look like, Joseph?
I have been told that the prosecutors are going to be done with their witnesses tomorrow.
Really?
Probably latest, is Wednesday morning. And then we will have to see what the defense does with their witnesses, which can extend it through Friday, can extend it through Monday.
Joseph, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is the prosecution making its case?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think once, especially Frank Pucci was a great witness for them in the sense that he solidified that there was a lot of deception going on, and it wasn't right. I mean, there's a good working relationship between SBA lenders and the SBA. There's always an agreement that we have to work together. And when you start playing with those rules, then it starts to get really messy, and the SBA is offended. And the regulars are offended. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So
this sheds some light, Lance, on this case and several other instances that SBA put in the SOP very clearly that you can't lie to them, and you have to tell them the truth, and you have to tell them all warts and everything. Go ahead, Lance.
The thing for the prosecutors, Frank Pucci was an excellent choice as a witness, because
absolutely,
something I talked about last week is a lot of confusion, a lot of technical terms, a lot of acronyms were presented, and the jurors were probably glossed over. I knew Frank when I worked at SBA. Frank is someone that can bring it down to a level that the jurors can understand. So that brilliant move on the prosecution.
And they probably, absolutely. I'm sure Joseph, Frank's passion rubbed off on Joseph. I'm sure that also rubbed off on the jury. Joseph.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, great. I know you're going to type this up, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. We have a webinar on Wednesday, Lance. Is that this Wednesday? What are we doing?
504 refinance is finally coming out.
We finally do this one.
Yeah, it's been a while, and everyone's talked about it. The rules are out, and we're going to provide information to bring you up to speed on 504 refinance.
And of course, I read an article this morning that, hey, funds may be running out. Well, but the 504 refinance, I mean, this isn't a one-shot deal. This isn't through the end of September. This is a permanent, as much as these programs are, permanent change. So
this will continue after the end of the fiscal
March
year.
of 2022. Very good. Joseph, excellent reporting. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Lance, as always, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Thank you,
Have a good day.
See you tomorrow.